All right, so here I am in Jamovi, and this is for the dependent samples t-test. So you would be conducting this analysis if you had a pretest post-test quasi-experimental design. So if you had the same people complete a measure of the dependent variable, you do an intervention, and then you have them complete another measure of the dependent variable. You could also have this design if you had a within subjects experiment. So for example, this study looked at people in both conditions. So in one condition, they took yoga and then they measured their stress. And then in another condition, they took Pilates and measured stress. So it was the same people. So the idea for a dependent samples t-test is that these scores for stress are two different time points for the same person. So these are pairs of scores. They're related. So for this example, we're going to go to t-test again. We're going to do a paired samples t-test. And we just want to move those pairs over. So we can move stress yoga here, stress yoga there. So the idea is that we're comparing each person's stress after yoga to their own stress after Pilates. Now, what we want to do is we want to make sure that we're selecting the right statistics and the right hypothesis. So the first thing you should do is go down to the hypothesis here. And if we leave it as is, this is a two-tailed hypothesis, a two-tailed null hypothesis test. But if we were to move this and say measure 1 is greater than measure 2, what we'd be looking at is actually the specific direction. So with this, it doesn't show the name of the levels like it does for the independent samples t-test, but something that I find really helpful is you can go to the descriptives right here, and then you can go to look at mean difference, which is the difference between the groups, and that shows up over here. You can see that it's negative. And we can also look at the effect size, which is our Cohen's d, and I'm going to go ahead and do confidence interval for that as well. And then when we look over here, the idea is that we can see stress for yoga is lower slightly in our sample. So stress for yoga is very, very slightly lower. And so that is the first variable that we put in. So the idea is that if that's lower, then we're looking for a negative relationship. And you can see that that gives us, or not a negative relationship, sorry, we're looking for a negative t-score. And you can see that the statistic is negative here. So if we had said that we thought that stress would be lower after yoga, then we would be looking for this negative, and we would actually want to click on our hypothesis that our measure 1, yoga, is lower than our measure 2. So you just want to make sure that you're matching that up correctly, because that's going to change your p-value. So that's the information that you want here. You can get your descriptive information, you get your inferential results, your degrees of freedom. So that's all that we need to click for this test. And then again, I would recommend exporting this and saving it, and potentially even printing it so that you can work with it in lecture.